Neopian lore, what we got in store. Talking about the things that we love and adore. We're all over 20, right? We're saying doors. So play this game. Love this game. Sometimes hate this game. But let's all talk about Neopian lore. Yeah! Woohoo! Welcome to episode 15 of Neopian Lore. The infamous villain Dr. Frank Sloth. He was the antagonist of the OG plot and has since sunk his claws into Neopia any chance he gets. Put on your spacesuit and buckle up in your rocket ship because we've got a lot to cover this episode. I'll try to be as accurate as possible and attempt to pronounce all names correctly, but keep in mind this world is fictional and this is all just for fun. I'm your host, Krista Poyman. Now let's cozy up to some nostalgia. 2,000 years ago, Neopia was not the happy and pleasant land it is today. No, far from it. A barren husk of a world covered with a featureless muddy swamp and endless barren plains. Neopia was not a nice place at all. It is said that one day, a young scientist known as Frank Sloth arrived on this desolate world. Nobody really knows how he got there. Some say a spaceship, or why he decided to call Neopia his home, but Sloth reveled in his new surroundings. He spent the years conducting vile experiments in his underground lair, trying to create creatures, maybe to assemble an army, or maybe because he was lonely. One day, as Frank emerged from his underground lair to collect samples, something happened, something that he did not expect. A beam of light broke through the thick purple clouds above and shone down on the rock in front of him. Sloth edged back nervously. Where light was shining, grass was starting to grow at an amazing rate. Soil was forming, and wild flowers started to grow on the rocks. Sloth hissed. Where the light had touched his skin, he felt searing pain. He had not seen the light in many hundreds of years. Back in the safety of his underground lab, Sloth used his network of cameras to find out what was happening on the surface above. The light was spreading, and the planet above was changing rapidly. Life form detected. Life form detected. Sloth sat staring at the screen. A small dragon creature looked confused. It was looking intently at its new surroundings, taking in every last detail. Suddenly, there was a flash of light and another creature appeared next to the dragon. This one was a smaller creature, a ball of fluff with large feet. It too looked confused.
What are these things? What are they doing in Neopia?
Sloth had an idea and smiled. It looked like it may be worth staying in Neopia after all. There's a lot to unpack in this Neopedia article. Where did he come from? Where did he go? Where did he come from, Dr. Sloth? Oh. But seriously, it's bizarre he came to this desolate planet by himself. If his goal was world domination, Neopia would have only been a temporary location to work on his plans, as initially there was no life on the planet. He just happened to be lucky that life forms magically appeared. Sloth must have originated from a civilized planet to have all the technology he does. And if that's the case, that could mean Neopia has other threats outside of this supposed doctor. Also, a doctorate in what exactly? I would like to see a diploma from an accredited university. Let's talk about his design real quick. We're not sure of his species, but he's adamant he's not a Neopet, which makes sense since he arrived before they existed. He's a sickly light green, tall, standing at 6'3", creepy red eyes, 3 tufts of hair always erect, and has a fabulous black and red cape, great for swooshing. There's speculation he may take after his namesake, as the few times we've seen his hands, they resemble a sloth's claws. And did you know that many sloths have a greenish hue, like our villain, due to the amount of algae in their fur? And it doesn't harm them. Sloths are kind of like their own ecosystem, housing certain species of moths only found in their fur which feed off the algae. Dr. Sloth even has an official Neopets account. His only pets are unsurprisingly Grundos. It is weird that none of them are mutant though, because that's like kind of his thing. But he seriously needs to work on his profile. Only 2 avatars? No trophies? No stamps? Color me unimpressed. Starting with the first ever plot in August of 2000, an ominous trailer was broadcasted on the website. There is a mysterious presence surrounding Neopia. In just days, the fate of Neopia will be decided. The arrival of Virtupet's plot began with the space fairy revealing that she had intercepted an encoded message from space. Not soon after, a giant space station entered orbit. All around Neopia, there were sightings of mutated Neopets. Dr. Sloth made himself known and announced he would replace every Neopet with his own mad scientist creation, Virtupets. He asked that everyone abandon their pets for his cause, and when they didn't do so, he started abducting them to experiment on. We learned that he attacked the home of the Grundos, a peaceful society, and he had turned them into monstrous mutants. We are the Grundos. We used to live in harmony and peace on the planet Doran. One day, Dr. Sloth came to our planet and transformed everyone into evil Grundos. Now we live in chaos and violence. We only live to serve our master, the evil Dr. Sloth. Users gathered items to build spaceships, but once they did, they learned that the space fairy had been captured by Sloth when she tried to free the prisoners. With her last ounce of strength, she sent this message Princess Leia style. Help me, you're my last hope. I would have taken on Dr. Sloth, but he has enslaved many beings of the universe, causing my powers to become drained. Adopt the slave pets. Rescue them from Dr. Sloth's control, and you will renew my strength so that I may defeat him. Dr. Sloth continued with his plans and transformed his spaceship into a gigantic ray gun, firing at Neopia in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But wait! The space fairy burst free from her confines and diverted the beam back at the ray gun, causing a huge explosion. Apparently, the only way to defeat Dr. Sloth is Dr. Sloth himself. This will be a reoccurring theme, by the way. His cockiness and arrogance always seems to get the best of him, but boy does that seem to make the best villains. I also love that we don't have a tragic backstory or anything. He seems to be power-hungry, evil for the sake of being evil. And that's the last time we ever saw Dr. Sloth. The end. Just kidding. Somehow he survived the explosion and appeared less than a year later, not in space, but the Lost Desert, playing a featured role in Brucey B and the Lucky Coin. Did you know that Brucey B, the slightly scammy Bruce who wears a Hawaiian shirt from the card game Cheat, had an entire plot back in 2001? Yeah, me neither. Our story starts at the annual Neopian Cheat Championships. With a prize of over 250,000 Neopoints at stake, Neopets from all over Neopia attend, hoping to carry off with the trophy, the money, and of course, the title of Neopia's biggest cheat. Many people on Wall Street also strive for this achievement. Brucey B was unstoppable, all thanks to the mysterious coin around his neck, gold with text in another language, and a red scarab in the center. However, completely unknown to Brucey, somebody was watching and eyeing the coin dangling around his neck. Brucey B went home that night, his pockets heavy with his winnings. To his surprise, he received a letter inviting him to play yet another game of Cheat, with a buy-in of 100,000 Neopoints. Not one to turn down a game, he decided to attend the event. When he arrived, all of his opponents were mutant, but he didn't find it strange in the least. I appreciate he wasn't prejudiced, but a mutant plot just happened, so you'd think he'd be a little suspicious. During the last hand, his jetsam opponent challenges all or nothing, including Brucey's lucky coin. Brucey agrees, and his opponent, gasp, cheats, winning the entire pot and kicking Brucey out into the cold. Then we cut to the jetsam giving the coin to none other than the devious Dr. Sloth. Dr. Sloth commands his fleet to a specific pyramid, trying to force his way in. Unsuccessful, he had his army of mutant Grundos blast the pyramid. But it doesn't work. The structure looks untouched.
I won't go home until I have what's rightfully mine.
In a fit of rage, Dr. Sloth throws the coin from Brucey B at the pyramid, miraculously aiming right at a slot. And the pyramid opens, leading to piles of riches. But Sloth was not interested in Neopoints. Well, he was, but it wasn't the most important thing here. He was searching for a powerful Cobral staff, and he had found it. Brucey B enlisted his two friends and fellow cheat players, Princess Fernipoo and Kapara, to follow the jetsam that stole his lucky coin, leading to the pyramid. And there they found the true mastermind behind the theft. Dr. Sloth demonstrates the power of his new staff and zaps Fernipoo Mutant and Kapara into a pet, but Brucey manages to escape. Sloth's army marches to Sekhmet, destroying everything and zapping everyone in his path. It was at this point users had to head to the Battledome to fight Sloth's minions, Grundo troopers and commanders, mechanoid warriors, evil Sloth clones, and rock beasts. But not Dr. Sloth himself. It's honestly not surprising he won't fight his own battles. He stood at the top of a tower, summoning more and more creatures with his staff, not getting his claws dirty. During the chaos, Brucey had the opportune time to climb the tower and retrieve his coin. He finds Sloth, who claims he does not have it, and Brucey attacks him. In the fight, the Cobral staff falls out of Sloth's hand, crashing to the ground and shattering. All zapped pets revert back to normal. Sloth retreats to the tippity top of the tower that he somehow made into a rocket, blasting off into space and leaving all of his minions behind. Such a classic narcissist move. Absolutely no loyalty with him. But don't you fret. In the epilogue, we see Brucey somehow got his lucky coin back. Not sure how, it's never explained, but it's nice to see him happy. Brucey B's plot wasn't even cold yet when Sloth reared his head again with a plot in the same year, Neopet version 2. In an old, deserted room in the bowels of the Virtupet space station, a disused computer monitor has suddenly just turned itself on. Hi. I'm ready for my first lesson. Hello. Don't you want to play with me? Doctor, don't you want to play with me? The plot centered around the computer program Dr. Sloth made, Neopet version 2, and his existential crisis. Let me tell you though, Neopet version 2 is so stinkin' cute. His little round body and his chubby little legs. Ooh! 4 children won a trip to the Virtupet space station, which was remodeled to be this hip new attraction. They're chatting it up, saying school is hard and they don't have many friends. But little did they know, Neopet version 2 was listening. They get on an elevator to head to their rooms, but it suddenly halts. You are my friends now. Do you want to play with me? You will be here forever. The kidnapping caught wind in Neopia, and citizens decide to send a letter to the creator of the program, begging for him to stop Neopets version 2. Why they ever thought Dr. Sloth would help is beyond me. If he can passively take over the world, that would be his dream. He was kind enough to send a letter back, and even gave them clues on how to stop it.
Citizens of Neopia, I've received your pathetic plea for help only this afternoon, and I must admit, it has really brightened up my day. I find it most amusing and indeed very ironic that you come to me, Dr. Frank Sloth, begging for help. Neopet version 2 was a program that I created a couple of years back. It was meant to be a replacement for you wretched Neopets. However, after you defeated me in the space station, the project was shelved. The program's artificial intelligence was a little too paranoid for my liking anyway. Now it seems that my creation has come back to life and has kidnapped 4 of your precious children. What a beautiful twist of fate. I could help you. I could deactivate the program, but considering the pain you have put me through, I simply do not think that would be fair. The deactivation code can be entered from a secret terminal somewhere within the station. There are 10 numerical codes to be found, and these must be entered in a certain order. Each of the 4 programmers who worked on the original Neopet version 2 program know 2 of the codes each, and the other 2 codes are built into the program itself. If you succeed in turning off the program, then the children will live. You have until midnight on Sunday to find the codes. or those poor children will run out of air and perish. I hope this has helped. Good luck in your quest. I will be watching you every step of the way. Yours sincerely, Dr. Frank Sloth.
Things were not looking good for the children. Neopet version 2 continuously made them play games and answer questions while their air supply was dwindling. In the meantime, users had to do some sleuthing in the source code to find how to disable the program. With only a couple of hours to go, the extremely complex code was figured out by heroic citizens of Neopia, and the evil program Neopet version 2 was deactivated. As the green and black screen faded, the Virtue Lift jerked into motion and the air supply was restored. Whatever happened to Neopet version 2? Is he still trapped inside the Virtue Pet space station? Surely someone could get him back up and running again and let him have a shop or something. All he wanted were friends. And maybe he has some important intel on his creator. Yet I understand that his loyalties could still align with Dr. Sloth instead of Neopia, but I think if we gave him a chance, he could do some good. Oh, I do hope we see this little program return someday. Dr. Sloth took a break from plots for a few years, and let me tell you, he was not happy about it, even going as far to vent out his frustrations on the news features. He was meant to have a plot in 2004 called The Return of Dr. Sloth, but it was technically canceled, but actually postponed, and instead we had Hannah in the ice caves. There was an alternate ending where Dr. Sloth appeared and zapped Hannah into a mutant, claiming revenge. Even though The Return of Dr. Sloth was pushed back, the Wizards of the Coast TCG set, Gallery of Heroes entries, and several games were still released. Let's briefly go over Sloth's many appearances in the game room, starting with Krellador Escape, where you are flying a ship trying to destroy Dr. Sloth's fleet. You do so by maneuvering around a grid to strategically have the ships crash into objects or each other. There isn't a time limit, so this is a great game for those who enjoy puzzles. In Never-Ending Boss Battle, you control a ship and are shooting at Sloth's own. His ship is stagnant in the center, and you glide around shooting at him to rack up points. There are many power-ups both you and your opponent can acquire. As the title suggests, this is a game where you just see how long you can survive. There's no winning in this battle against him. The Return of Dr. Sloth, boy is that a mouthful, is an arcade shooter, basically Terror Attack, but in space. Shoot at the invaders to get points and collect power-ups to get an advantage. In Space Rocked, you play as orange and purple Grundos enacting your revenge on Dr. Sloth by using only a slingshot to crash his ship. All you do is strategically aim, click, and cross your fingers. If you would like to see the adorable Neopet version 2, you should play Spell or Starve. You build words from a block of letters to escape the elevator controlled by the computer program. One of my favorite games on the site is Advert Attack. You race in a ship against Dr. Sloth, but the only way to move is to click on the Go button that pops up on the screen. The catch is, you must close out advertisements in order to click on said button. They progressively get more and more annoying and more hilarious. Do you want to install and run the greatest Virtue Pet game in the whole entire world? At the Battle Dome, anything can happen. You have one Neo mail waiting for you. And lastly, Splatasloth, the bane of my existence. A tube sock decorated like Sloth shoots through a chute. Your job is to hit it using only the spacebar. It's insanely fast and insanely frustrating. Honorable mention is the shooting gallery game Carnival of Terror. Dr. Sloth sent an invasion of robot Chias to take over the carnival in the haunted woods and eventually all of Neopia. It's fun, there's pie, so much to love. Okay, we got games out of the way, let's talk avatars. If you would like to celebrate this fill-in on the Neo boards, you have not one, but 7 to choose from. Dung Dash was awarded during the 22 April Fool's Joke. It features a sloth toy holding a dung pizza. Comic-Con 2018, which you received when opening up a Comic-Con 2018 mystery capsule, shows a Skeeth dressed as Dr. Sloth. Mohawk Halloween, have an item with the word sloth in your inventory and view the lookup of a Halloween mohawk. I Heart Sloth, Complete a loyalty quiz at Sloth's Mind Control Laboratory on Dr. Sloth Day, January 14th. If you visit on another day, you'll see this message.
What? There's no mind control laboratory here on the space station. I don't know what you're talking about. Sloth would never take control of the servers run by those pesky Neopets staff people, so you must be mistaken. Now, get out of here before my trigger finger slips on this blaster here.
I Heart Happiness. Have your avatar set to the I Heart Sloth avatar and visit the Space Fairies Gallery of Heroes page. Oh, so petty, but I love it. Which quickly, let's segue to Dr. Sloth's alter ego, the Happiness Fairy, which is featured on this avatar. Sloth is wearing cardboard wings, a smiley face pinned to his robes, a black mask, and holding a daisy. This is a cheery departure from the villain we know. His mission? To only spread happiness across Neopia. Why does he do this? No clue. Maybe he secretly had some good in him all along. The Happiness Fairy did appear in the Gallery of Heroes for a period of time. Or maybe it's a twin or look-alike and it's not actually Dr. Sloth at all. Who knows? But the outfit is glorious nonetheless. The next avatar is TCG Return of Dr. Sloth Champion, which features the Virtue Pets logo. It was awarded to users who won the real-life Return of Dr. Sloth release tournament, and to those who scored enough points in the staff tourney guessing game. And lastly, Sloth! Awarded via a random event. Speaking of random events, Sloth's is pretty awesome. A mad cackle echoes around you before Dr. Sloth appears.
The price for this transmogrification potion is merely your unquestioning loyalty.
You take the potion. He didn't mean that, right? It's pretty hard not to like a guy who hands you a transmogrification potion worth millions. And mutant pets have incredible designs. I mean, have you seen the mutant Norbu? It's so beautiful, it hurts. Now we have 3 more mentions of Sloth in plots and events before we get to the grand finale. But they're fun, so stick with me. In 2001, we had the Ski Lodge Murder Mystery, a staff event. The Neopets team took a vacation together at a ski lodge. However, one member was found dead at the bottom of the stairs. Later, another was strangled. One was found drowned in a swimming pool. Early TNT had a dark sense of humor, and I personally love it, but it's not everyone's cup of tea. In the end, 16 were brutally murdered. Staff member Adam caught another staff member, Maverick, in the act. Adam quickly called the authorities, and TNT the Beaker captured Maverick in a cage. As Maverick was hauled away by the authorities, the video cuts to Dr. Sloth behind a computer muttering,
"This one has outlived his purpose,"
pressing a button to destroy Maverick, exposing he was a robot all along. This is a strong departure from how we've seen Sloth before. We know he's evil, clearly not fazed by zapping pets, kidnapping, and enslaving the entirety of the Grundo population. But murder? Like graphic murder? It's an event and not truly canon, since we see the TNT members return for other events, but it is interesting how far he will go. Moving on to the Tale of Woe plot in 2006, Dr. Sloth doesn't technically appear, but while Sophie was testing out potions on her pet Meowclops, one of the results made it look and act like Dr. Sloth. And its name? You're not ready for this cuteness. Dr. Meow Sloth.
You fool! You'll pay for this treachery. I, Dr. Sloth, will bring your ruin down upon you.
The last event I want to mention is the 2021 Festival of Neggs. Topsy, a Neg-themed Psy-Bunny, decided to play a game of hide-and-seek that year. He was more disheveled and unhinged as the festival went on, and seemed awfully disappointed it wasn't the Space Fairy who found him each time. Please ask her to come. The Space Fairy does indeed attend the festival, and Topsy reveals he was a robot all along, programmed by Dr. Frank Sloth. The Space Fairy quickly disables him, and Topsy's programming is reset to the Neg-loving Psy-Bunny we all know and somewhat tolerate. It's unclear how Sloth was able to mess with this programming, as at the time he was very much incapacitated, but we also see him for the random event, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe Topsy was on a timer of some sort? Or maybe Dr. Sloth is more of a current threat than we thought. And here we are, his opus magnum, the return of Dr. Sloth. What's cool about looking at the TCG that came out prior to the plot is that you can tell what elements they had pre-planned and what had been scrapped. 2 changes of note was that there was no mention of the split Grundo, who will play an important role as you'll hear, and there was originally going to be a big fight scene against the Krelidor Defender robot. Alrighty, here we go. In a galaxy not far away. Neopians still visit the Virtupet space station to marvel at the advanced technology, but one day, a buff bloomaroo named Captain Garou announces, "This ship is now under the control of Dr. Frank Sloth," and uses his robotic lookalikes to capture everyone on board. All except our protagonists, Sylara, a young Cybunny visiting the space station with her parents, and Gorix, a member of the Resistance, a group formed to combat Sloth during his eventual return. Gorix mistakes Sylar for another Cybunny, a part of the Resistance, known as the Scout, and drags her with him out of danger. They head to the Resistance headquarters, and Gorix recognizes his mistake. They tell Sylara of their mission, and she agrees to help in whatever capacity she can. Dr. Sloth orders all the prisoners to be taken to transport shuttles, but before they can be moved, the Resistance raids the ship, diverting the prisoners to their own shuttles to be returned to Neopia. Among the prisoners was the Scout for the Resistance, who rejoins the group. We have some lore to retcon real quick. In the first ever plot, Grundos were stated to come from a planet called Doran, although it was later revealed they originated from Krelidor, Neopia's moon. My theory to make all the pieces fit is that Doran was just the original name they gave Krelidor. They called it a planet because that's what they thought it was. Just wanted to clarify that real quick. So there's a civil war going on Krelidor between the Grundos. The divide happened after the death of a great Grundo leader who had 2 sons, one purple and one orange, who were constantly disagreeing over everything. They couldn't decide who should become leader and had split into groups based on color, purple and orange. The Scout informs the Resistance that Dr. Sloth has been fueling the flames of the war by placing a traitor among them to escalate the argument and keep them distracted. The reason? He wants to steal Krelidite from the mines, an unstable material that can mutate DNA. The Resistance heads to Krelidor to inform the Grundos of the betrayal and invite them to join in the battle against Sloth. Things don't go very well, as there's a lot of tension and lack of trust. But the traitor is revealed and captured, a Grundo who wears a mask on half of his face due to his color being split. He would switch his mask to the opposite side of his face, depending on who he planned to blend in with. As we head back to events on the ship, I did want to mention something I find very interesting about Dr. Sloth in this plot. He has shared a lot of power amongst several others. The 4 most prominent are Commander Garou, Commander Gormos, a bounty hunter named Yalara, and the mercenary Sophix II. Sloth has always been the only guy in charge, and in this plot, he's very much in the shadows and just watching. Yes, his army has always done the grunt work, but he personally would make an appearance in battle and call the shots. Perhaps he recognized he's not invincible and needs help. I mean, we've seen him defeated how many times now? But in this plot, he's delegated practically all of his tasks to others, though he doesn't always tell them how to do them. This pins the characters against each other, chasing after Sloth's favor. They're all working in different directions and not together, unlike the Resistance, because their orders aren't clear. And it's easy for their opponents to find and utilize these weak spots, as we'll see later. But here's the thing. We know the minute things go south, Sloth will betray every single one of them for his own benefit. Sloth is informed by Commander Gormos that the prisoners have escaped, some going to Krelidor to inform the Grundos. While Sloth wanted to recruit the Krelidorians for his domination of Neopia, he's assumed they've been compromised by the Resistance. He's mined enough Krelidite for his cause, so he decides to blow up the moon.
Destroy them all, every last one of them.
The Space Fairy sends a transmission to the Resistance. The reason she's been absent is she was assisting another distressed planet, most likely a diversion from Sloth. She informs them that her magical token was lost in their last confrontation, And knowing Dr. Sloth, he probably has it and has been experimenting with its magic. It could be the key to their success. There's internal fighting among Sloth's crew. See, I knew it would be a problem. This gives a window of opportunity for the resistance to strike. During this whole invasion, though, we cut to Sloth just chilling in the control room playing cards. When Commander Gormos goes to ask for assistance, Sloth retorts,
"It's an entire fleet of ships against a tiny few grundos. Even a half-wit couldn't mess that up."
And Commander Gormos is fed up. So when he comes across the resistance sneaking around the ship, he lets them go. See, Dr. Sloth, this is why you should be nice to your employees. The traitor on Krellador has also escaped, returning to Sloth. And what does Dr. Sloth do as soon as he returns to him? Insults him. HR should probably talk to him about his management skills. The Resistance locates the Space Ferry token on board and heads to Dr. Sloth for the final showdown. Upon their arrival, Sloth begins the villain's monologue. Gorx decided to waste no time and zaps him.
"How dare you interrupt my resistance is futile speech?"
Gorx tries to battle Sloth, but instead he has the traitor fight in his stead. While the two are in combat, Sloth zaps Gorx and taps him out. Sylara grabs the Space Ferry token, repeating the enchantment instructed by the fairy, and Sloth gets trapped inside of it. The ship goes haywire. Self-destruct sequence activated, self-destruct sequence activated, and the Resistance retreats, leaving behind the trapped Dr. Sloth. In the final panel of the comic, we see the token floating through space, and at the last moment, 2 red eyes glow within it. Following his failed attempt to take over Neopia, not much has been heard of this criminal mastermind. One thing is for sure, Neopia has not seen the last of him. Well, that's all for this episode of Neopian Lore. All characters and licensing belong to Neopets.com. Music was created by me, Krista. Today's composition is called The Conquest. I hope you have a lovely day in Neopia.